The West Tigers podcast for episode number 328, recording about 15 minutes after the final siren. The West Tigers' latest loss, now 7 in a row, losing 24 points to 12 to the Dolphins, the last game in Magic Round, as we all know. Let's have a look at some one-word submissions. Eddie Otto, he's got something else to do, or he just couldn't muster the energy this evening. Eddie's word, he's actually gone for a number. He's gone for the number 7 as his word. That's the 7 from 47 since Madge was sacked, which is a pretty sad and scary sort of number and statistic to consider. We have since that decision was made, and I don't think Eddie is saying that that was necessarily the right or wrong decision, but it's an interesting time in the West Tigers history. We've got a 14% win rate with that 7 from 47%. And in summary, Eddie was saying it's not NRL standard. Grant on Facebook, his word was ingrained. In other words, losing and poor performances ingrained in the club. To the West Tigers podcast forum, Canberra Tiger, their word was shredder, and the shredder is fired up for Naden, Staines, AJ Kapoa and Sullivan. Matt V Tiger, Luai, saying, I'm convinced after his performance today that he'll be able to provide something out of nothing for us. Frullins, one word was halfback. Good one, Frullins. Avo, unfixable. I think the club is broken beyond repair. Tiger Tons, one word was stupidity, and that is all. Channeling the inner Miranda Priestley from The Devil Wears Prada. No, that is all. Just stupidity. Mike's word was unprofessional. Enumerator was immature, but there are some green shoots, according to Enumerator. Easty Magpie, lucky. Yeah, but lucky they were ordinary. Good thinking, Easty Magpie. Thank you. Jedi, the word was stupid. Stupid team and stupid club. Snake, coaching. Our players don't know what to do with the ball. And Nat Mac 78, who is a new member to the West Tigers podcast forum. Welcome, Nat Mac 78. And I'm presuming 78 is the year that you were born. And I think Gary and I would probably say that's a pretty good year to be born. The word from Nat Mac 78 was kicking. In other words, we didn't put any threatening kicks in all game, and that is a really, really, really excellent point. And welcome to the West Tigers podcast forum. Speaking of Gary Watson, good evening to you. Your one word, please, after the latest loss.
I don't know that it's a good evening, but my one word is similar to a few of those others there, and it's just dumb, dumb, dumb. The amount of dumb or stupid decisions, errors, plays that we made today, it's just mind-boggling. And until we get a little bit of intelligence in this side, a little bit of football IQ, then I can't see it changing very much.
Dumb. D-U-M, dumb. Declan, hello. What's your one word, please?
Hi, Joe. As Gary said, it's probably not great to be here, but yeah, we make do. At least we showed up, unlike Eddie, who's not here. But Eddie, I think my one word would be chances, and we just didn't take our chances. I think that I'm probably not as bummed about this performance as a lot of other people, which is purely because I think there was some good signs, particularly defensively, but we just didn't take our chances when they presented themselves to us. I think Sullivan ran off a beautiful ball, to Sullivan. If we scored there, I think the game ties. Don't know what happens. Olam also made a break early on in the game, and he nearly stepped the full back, and he just tripped at the last second. If he scores there, who knows what happens? And I thought we defended really, really well, but obviously the same kind of stupid mistakes. And then we just weren't good enough to take our chances, and we also got some bad luck with the referees as well again. But yeah, it's just frustrating because I feel like we are close and we are making progress, but we aren't accumulating those wins on the board to kind of justify the argument, which is very frustrating.
I also had Luai on my list of one words because it was just good to see somebody that just can't come soon enough actually provide some attacking spark in that game for Penrith. It's completely a moot point. It doesn't help us out at all, but it's nice to know at least someone's coming that has that ability to cause a bit of, a few heart palpitations in the defensive line. But my other words, dumb, I'm channeling you, Gary. I agree with that. I've also got finesse / polish, and I've also got 12. So let's start with the number 12, and that is the amount of points that we scored. And the simple fact is you're not going to win very many, if any, NRL games if you can only score 12 points in a game. The halfback, let's start with, he's not our first choice halfback. He's probably not a recognised halfback, Gary. But Jayden and Galvin, I want to talk about Galvin's game as well. But Jayden Sullivan, if Caesar played in that game, do you think maybe we might win it? I thought Sullivan was just particularly poor.
I don't know if we win it even if Caesar there. I think Caesar would have got us around the park a lot better. But I don't think he's dangerous enough to make up for the lack of attack that we showed today. But while Sullivan was poor, he was at least dangerous with the ball in his hand at times. And I don't know that Caesar brings that danger to that position. And for me, that's the biggest problem at the moment. Everything's just a little bit too slow. And for the life of us, we don't look like scoring apart from Appy or a kick once we're inside that 20. And that was a big problem last year. It continues to be a big problem. We look more dangerous 30 to 40 metres out from the try line than we do in the 20. When we got a penalty at one point in the game, I remember thinking to myself, when we kicked for touch and we kicked it down towards the 20, I'm thinking, I don't really want to be down here. I'd rather just take the tap because we just looked that pedestrian when trying to strip numbers, which is what you have to do a fair bit of when you're down in that red zone. And I don't know that Caesar improves that today. What I will say, and I know I'm criticising us for being dumb and a lot of dumb decisions. I think Declan was right when he spoke about the defensive effort. We had no right to be in that game today with the way we played, the stupid penalties, the stupid sin binnings. We had no right to still be in that game with 15 minutes to go. We're only 6 points behind. And if we just had a little bit of attack, a little bit of danger, I think that game could have been one we could have snuck away with despite playing poorly. And whoever mentioned Luai as their one word, that gives me a little bit of excitement moving into next season because his form today would have made a difference to that side. I doubt Caesar would have.
The communication in offense seemed to be really poor at times, Declan. Like Galvin, a couple of those kicks that he put through, nobody knew what was on. And one of them he kicked it after he got a repeat set, which is not necessarily the end of the world. He made a mistake, but we just look so disjointed in attack. Like nobody seems to be on the same page. And the Dolphins, to their credit, they listened to the podcast. They obviously listened. Wayne Bennett listened to the West Tigers podcast. Said, "Oh, you want to beat West Tigers? Really, really good line speed." They were up in our faces all the time, and we just didn't seem to have any sort of cohesive plan or way of creating those overlaps or creating that threat to them. I thought.
Yeah, as this Gary said though, like they did have line speed, but we did manage to get a pound of flesh back on them. I thought, like obviously we didn't dominate them or anything, but I thought we did like win the middle a few times. Like it wasn't just them running the entire time. But then when we, as you said, when we actually got to the 20, like it just didn't look great as it has for like a number of weeks. I'm not sure what it is. I'm starting to think that it's just a personnel thing because besides our ball players, like who in that back line or in the team are you scared to get the ball into space? Because we don't really have that like edge player besides Olam, and Olam did, to his credit, play quite well today, but we don't have that kind of guy like Olaquadu from Manly that you're just scared to get the ball because and that's what creates the numbers. Like at the moment, it does look a little bit like a training run, and sometimes like with them, our winger was able to offload the ball to Olam and he scored. Like stuff like that can happen. That kind of break down that unstructured footy. But in terms of when we go to our processes and the set plays, it does look a little bit clunky at the moment. It doesn't look as fast or as natural as some of the other teams. And unfortunately for us, all the teams are down with us at the bottom of the ladder. You know, they could all attack really, really well. So we kind of have the opposite problem. We probably defend like those mid-table teams, so to speak, but we just can't attack anywhere near teams like the Titans, and I think that's what's going to be really tough for us to avoid the spoon this year.
Well, I mean, I use the word moot. So really a lot of our discussion is moot because the guys that when your reserve grade team's running dead last, there's not many options. You've kind of got to keep picking the Charlie Stainses and the Brent Nadens out. I mean, we keep hearing that there are youngsters coming through that have plenty of class and plenty of strike, but that's not going to happen this year. So what do we do, Gary, for the rest of this year? Are you concerned that, like, you can bring Caesar back when he's not suspended, but I don't know where we're going to get these points from. I don't know how Benji can change anything to make us more competitive, which makes me worry. Snake said on the podcast that we need a pro-offensive coach, but I don't think there may be some merit in that, but I think when you don't have the cattle that provides any strike, as Declan was saying, it doesn't matter how well you flog them or coach them. They just don't have that ability, I think.
Well, one thing I would like to see us do is make better use of Samuel Fainu. I think we're doing really well at getting him the ball, but I don't think we set him up as that decoy runner to draw in defence enough. He's dangerous when he hits the ball. He hits the line quite hard, but we're usually hitting him and not going out behind him. I'd like to see us using him better, running that edge, that crash play back in, and then a player sweeping around behind him. I don't think we're doing enough of that. They're the slight little things that we could try to create a little bit more space for our outside backs. But our shifting of the ball, and when we go to shape, it looks slow, it looks clunky. We don't have guys running onto the ball at pace, and you're just not going to trouble those. Well, most defenses, we're only scoring 2 tries a game because you're just not going through those processes quick enough. And for me, that's a big problem. And unless we can find some way to speed that up, and I think a lot of it does come down to the players we have playing at the moment, then it's going to be difficult for you all year. We don't have speed out wide. We don't have pace. We don't have guys who run the ball at 1,000,000 miles an hour outside of Sam Fainu. And that's going to be an issue. And you're completely right. When you look at that reserve grade side, they're running dead last. The hope we do have, and it's not a hope for this year, and it's not a hope for probably next year, is that the Jersey Flag side's going quite well this year. And a couple the lower grade sides, the Western Suburb sides, went pretty well this year. That's the hope we have moving forward, is that there are young kids coming through, but we've also got those young kids playing in the reserve grade side, and I think that's probably hurting that side's chance as well.
It does, yeah, but it does flow through, doesn't it? And it's hard from a fan's perspective. It goes back to that word joyless. Like, I know we've had some success and we've got some competitive sides right down low, but yeah, it's hard when you see your reserve grade team getting flogged and getting beaten. Alamalo, Declan, I thought he played well. He dropped that early bomb, which he was under a fair bit of pressure when he did drop that ball. But for his, I think, second or third game of first grade, he was pretty good. I thought he was probably one of our best. But what doesn't make any sense to me is that you've got a guy that's tall and athletic like him. Not once did we put a kick up anywhere near him. When you're struggling to score points, it's like we'd completely forgotten that you could actually make an attacking kick and use some of your height. I mean, Naden as well is quite a tall guy. So I don't know if he was utilised as best as we could have, but I thought he was pretty solid.
Yeah, I think it was difficult because I think they did kick to that side a few times, but Sullivan just didn't get the height on the kicks for it to be effective. And then, the Dolphins players were able to kind of like escort it around, so he didn't really have much of a chance. But yeah, I thought he was really good. He's got really great technique up in the air. Like, you can tell he's from a union background where, like, you need to be able to catch the ball in the air because there's a lot more kicking. So I could tell that, he looked pretty comfortable in that area. I thought, like, this is kind of pivoting a bit, but I thought that, he was, like, the Tigers are pretty unlucky for one of the Dolphins players not to get sin binned off of one of his tackles. It looked a lot like a hip drop, or like at least a dangerous tackle that Olam got sent off for. So I thought that was a little bit unlucky from our part. But yeah, I thought his carries were good. Like, he looked like, out of our back three, he looked the most likely, and he had that nice offload for Justin Olam as well. So yeah, I think it was a big improvement for this game for him.
But raising that kicking game, the biggest problem with our high balls today is every single one of them was a defensive kick. They weren't attacking kicks, so they were kicks on playing on where you're going to give the ball back to the opposition. It was trying to pin them down in the corner and make them come out of that corner. There was not one high kick that was an attacking kick. The only attacking kicks we did were those grubbers, and I think we put all of them dead. So our attacking kicking game was pretty much non-existent today. And when you're a side like us that is struggling to score points, you need your attacking kicking game to really be on song, because that becomes the way you score points. We can't strip the numbers, so we need to be a lot better with our attacking kicks, and our attacking kicking game was woeful today.
What about the game from Buller? We keep talking about the Buller providing more of an attacking thrust through the middle, and he made a couple of attempts, but it was pretty well shut down. But I think when you compare that to the Dolphins, Declan, who had that constant threat, in fact, you could probably say he was the Hammer was probably their best attacking threat. He was the player that you were most concerned of. It was always that danger that he was coming through, and it happened a couple of times. One was disallowed, and one he got to the kick. One he sent the kick dead. But we're just not getting that from Buller. I don't think the opposition is going, we're worried about Buller.
I think that's a little bit harsh. I think me and Gary were talking off camera, and Buller, I think the sad thing about his game was that he just didn't find a way to inject himself into the game. He didn't get the touches that you need from your fullback, and that's disappointing. But at the same time, I think the Hammer was able to impact the game with his support play because he's so quick, and that's really impressive. But in terms of backline moves, was he that much better with ball in hand than Jerome Buller? I'm not so sure. But then obviously he's classy and he's so quick, and in broken play, that's where he's really dangerous, because I think their back rower made the break, and then it was just it was actually a pretty hard pass for them to take for him to go under the post, but he managed to just catch it so well. But I don't know, it was a tough one. But I'm frustrated that Buller didn't manage to find more touches, but at the same time, I don't think a lot really opened up for him this game as well. So it's kind of two sides of the same coin.
Gary, we've been having a discussion in recent weeks. We spoke about Naden. You can't pick him on the wing because he fades in and out and does dumb things. So we put him back in the centres. And it reminded me a little bit of the game against the Knights, where realistically it was game over with 8 seconds to go at the end of the first half. What happened with 45 seconds to go, it just sums Brent Naden up. I want to like Brent Naden. I want him to be a success. But every time you think, here's a guy that's going to grab onto an opportunity and do something, he just does something dumb like that.
That's a hard thing for me, because I think he has his moments where there is a good footballer there. I think he has his moments where there's a good centre there. But if you're giving out a dunce hat for today in what was a dumb display by a football team, he would have the dunce hat firmly on his head. Mm. And that situation leading up to half-time, I know, I played football years ago, and a guy on the ground, you want to go jam them. But as the last tackle, all he had to do was walk up and put his hand on the guy that was already laying on the ground.
Yeah.
And instead he came rushing in, and he copped him in the head with a swinging arm, and you just can't do it in football now. And he needs to learn that. And the problem is, I don't think he's going to learn that, because he's had suspensions in the past from doing dumb stuff, and it's just dumb penalty or dumb sin binning, dumb send-off, dumb suspension, dumb play after dumb play. And it's really sad, because there is potentially a good footballer there. He's big, he's strong, he's tall, he's quite quick, he hits the line hard. But there's just too many poor errors, and I hate using the word dumb to describe a player. But those decisions he is making show really low football IQ, and it hurts us almost every single week. And I don't think we can have that anymore. Today was a really low IQ performance from the whole side, and I don't think we can get away with carrying a guy like Naden when he's pulling out efforts like that every single week.
Declan, he seems to we've seen the cycle with him a little bit where he gets a go in first grade, tends to go okay, does a few dumb things, has a bad game, gets dropped back to reserve grade, stars in reserve grade, comes back. It seems to be just the Brent Naden cycle where he just can't seem to establish himself as a first grade footballer. And further to what Gary's saying, he's talking about Gary's stellar career playing football, but like you're playing in the NRL where there's how many cameras, there's a bunker, like you're not going to get away with anything. It's just so dumb that how could you be so, with 45 seconds to go, your teammates have been slogging their guts out trying to hang into this game against a superior team and you do something like that. Like I wouldn't have confidence in picking him again.
No, you just can't trust him. And I think the bottom line is if he had that ability to be trusted, he'd probably still be playing at Penrith because, he definitely has the talent. But then if you just look at someone like Stephen Crichton, he's just so reliable. Like he's got just as much natural talent, but you just know he's not going to do something dumb like that. So that's why Brent Naden's found himself at a few different clubs. And I think he missed out on one part of the cycle is that he cops like a big suspension and then ends up in reserve grade and then comes back. So that's part of the Brent Naden cycle. But yeah, you just can't trust him at this point in time because he's not a young player anymore, and it was just so unnecessary. Like he was just on the ground, he wasn't going anywhere. I understand like you're trying to be aggressive, like you're trying to show something, but yeah, it was just like either it was an accident and it was a really jokey thing to do, or it was a grub play. So yeah, I don't know. It's just so disappointing. And yeah, as soon as he did that, you just knew that it was going to be almost impossible to win this game. And yeah, I would rather Fatafi back in there. He may not be as talented, but I just know that he's not going to do stuff like that.
The biggest problem with that play is there's no possible positive outcome to come from it. Like there's 47 seconds to go. It's the last tackle. If he drops the ball and the ball goes in the touch, it's the same result no matter what you're doing. Like I could maybe understand it if it was a second or third tackle, you're going in and you're trying to hit the guy hard. But there was no positive outcome from that situation. It was just all risk with no possible return. And that, I guess that sums up a lot of Brent Naden's mistakes is they're high risk with really low returns.
Do you think that he couldn't get the ball away to Staines? Well, we had the line. Staines was unmarked in that second half. Do you think he just couldn't get to it, Declan?
Yeah, I think I don't think he actively made a decision not to pass the Staines. I think it just was too hard of a pass because the Dolphins winger was jamming up on him. Maybe it would have been a world-class ball if he got it. But yeah, frustrating he didn't have the class to get it there. But I'm not sure if it was like a classic kind of ball hold moment where he just decided not to give it to him. Because I don't think that's, at least looking from the TV, maybe someone was at the game, had a better angle. But from the TV, it just looked like the Dolphins player had read the play and jammed with enough time to block it down.
When we talk about,
I really think you needed a tap on in that situation. A quick tap on. There was that much space there. It didn't have to be a great ball. If you get it out there decently, that try line was wide open. I think he had to find a way at least to attempt a pass.
Yeah.
In that situation, I prefer to attempt the pass and go to the sideline than not throw it at all.
Talking about the forwards, so we made the change of Twal going to lock, which didn't assist us with our offense, I don't think, in terms of points threatening. But he played pretty well again, Twal. But off the bench, I thought Pole was good, and I thought Sione Fainu was okay. Always hard in your first game against a pretty experienced, pretty physical Dolphins team. I thought Clemmer and Utukamanu were pretty good as well. I thought the forwards overall, they held their own, Gary. They didn't set the world on fire, but I thought once again that I don't think they are really or realistically our major problem, and that's a pretty good effort when you consider that we took Bateman and Papali'i, two internationals, out of that pack.
Yeah, I thought it was Steph's best game in a couple of months. I could see him attempting to really lift that intensity that he was showing towards the start of the season. He was running the ball a lot harder. He played pretty big minutes. I don't know how many minutes he played because I haven't checked, but having a look, I don't remember him going off in that first half, and he was on for a big chunk of that second half. So big minutes, and I thought he was trying to improve his intensity. Clemmer's just very reliable at the moment. I think while Steph's been down, it's been really crucial that we've been getting those meters out of him. I thought Seyfarth was quite good when he came on as well, was running the ball quite hard. So, I do agree for the most part, I thought our forwards were really good. Coppola again gave away a stupid penalty. They're the sort of things we've got to get out of our game. But for a fairly injury-damaged forward pack, I thought they were at least, the effort was there. And that's the hard thing. The hard thing with today and the hard thing with this season is even the backs, across the board, the effort's really high. The effort was really high today. They fought really hard today and were still in a game they had no right to still be in. But it's just being let down with poor attack and dumb decisions at multiple times in the game. And that's what's really frustrating to watch, because they're going out there and they're playing their guts out. But I think you used the word polish earlier, Joel. There's just no polish to anything they do. And the NRL in 2024, you can't win games just on effort. You go back 10, 15 years ago, you'd come up against enough sides that were off their game, that just by fighting and working really hard and putting in that lot of effort, you'd win games. But it's really hard to see us winning a game, because that's all we have at the moment is effort. And effort isn't enough to win NRL games at the moment.
Yeah, well, there was two opportunities in that first half and two opportunities in the second half, and we didn't grab either of them. So you when you are a struggling team, you just have to convert some of those. So, Declan, I'm going to ask you the $6 million question. Let's look a little bit more macro than micro. Are we a poor team that just sort of ekes out a performance against an underperforming opponent like Newcastle and the Dolphins, who the Dolphins weren't at their top of their game, the Knights weren't at the top of their game last week, or are we a team that is improving and is not that far off? I fear that if we run into a team that's hot, we're going to be in big trouble, and that's despite the fact that I think our defence has improved. Where do you think we're at?
I well and truly think that we are on the right track. We're not that far off. I know it seems difficult to say right now because there are a 7-game winning streak, but I genuinely think that we haven't really been blown off the park yet. So compared to last year and the previous years, where that just wasn't the case, and you could tell within the first 10 minutes that it was going to be a long ride, and we just need some things to go away. We also need to improve the roster somehow. We need to get more quality in those key positions. But honestly, I think defensively, we've taken big improvements, but attacking wise, we're just that little bit of key roster personnel away, and that's tough to take because we haven't really had those results on the scoreboard, and that's going to annoy people. And a lot of people are going to say, well, just look at the ladder from last year. But I think you have to look at the kind of more micro aspects of the game to say that, no, we actually have improved, but we just need a little bit more to get those victories. And then if we get blown away this season, I mean, they seem like the Roosters, who I think could blow anyone away on their day. I mean, the Warriors beat Penrith this week, but then last week, the Roosters looked like the Harlem Globetrotters that first 20 minutes. So some NRL teams can just blow anyone off the park on their day. But I think that, if we get Luai next year, we get Taruva, maybe try and get another back rower. The attack improves because there's that little bit more quality. Hopefully we can nab some of these games that we're losing at the moment.
Yeah, the big thing for me is if you put Jerome Luai in that side that played today in the form that he showed today, then we probably win that game. So I think him coming across is going to be a big addition next year. I think it's going to improve, especially it has to improve that red zone attack, because that's still my biggest concern this year, as it was last year. So I think they're things that do improve. My concern for this year, and I do agree with Declan, I am pleased with the effort. I am pleased with the fight. I am pleased with the way the team is playing for Benji Marshall. I'd love to see us not making these stupid decisions that we keep making week on week on week. But what I'm concerned about between now and the rest of the season is what if that effort doesn't stay? What if this season gets to the point for the players where it's too hard and the season's gone and that intensity drops? That's my concern moving forward, because that's when things could start to get a little bit ugly. And I think it's really crucial for us building into next season that doesn't happen, and that we keep working on things and we keep progressing. Because at the moment, if that effort drops on the lack of polish and the lack of attacking prowess that we've shown so far this year, that's when we're going to hit an ugly game, or a few ugly games, or a run of ugly games where some teams could touch us up. And this team has shown before, when the season gets a bit long and a bit too hard, that there has been some players that have turned up their toes and given up, and we can't have that.
I think the next 4 weeks is absolutely critical for the club, because we've got the Cowboys, and then we've got the bye, and then we've got the Titans, and we've got the Dragons. So you would think that if we could just get maybe one win out of those 3 games, we may be able to avoid the wooden spoon. I think, yeah, like I think Souths are getting closer all the time. They're still an unhappy club with their own problems, but they've got too much class to go through the rest of the year without winning 3 or 4 games. I think we're going to be struggling to win 1 or 2 more games, which means that we have to keep our noses ahead of someone like the Gold Coast, and when we play them, it could again be a battle for the wooden spoon, Gary?
Yeah, for me, the effort needs to be rewarded. The effort that the players have shown needs to be rewarded. So it's really important that in the next couple of weeks, they're able to come away with a win, because that's when it gets hard, is when you're putting in all the effort and there's just no reward for that effort. And at the moment, there's not a lot of reward coming our players' way.
Yeah, and it's like that for the fans. It's very
definitely
hard.
like that for the. I need some reward, I can tell you. I'll have to sit there with a box of chocolates next week.
Absolutely, it's very reminiscent. I know it's going back. It gets boring talking about the old days, but it is reminiscent of that 2001-2002 team where you had a few hotheads, you had some ill discipline, and you had really no idea how to score points. It's just very, very much reminds me of those earlier days. Shane Richardson, in that podcast that he did with James Graham, he was talking about when he got to South. He said, I'm paraphrasing here, but he said, we were terrible. When I first got there, the team was terrible. And then we went from being terrible to being bad, and then we went from bad to being average, and then we went from average to being good, and then we won the premiership. So that sort of ties into what I was talking about in that question that I asked you, Declan, is, do you think that we're terrible? Do you think we're bad? Do you think we're on our way to average? No, that's kind of asking you that. But are we as far back as maybe South might have been if you go back to those days? That was a pretty woeful team.
I think we're bad. I don't think we're terrible. I think we were terrible when we'd lose every week by what felt like 40 points, and the game would be over by by the 10-minute mark. And yeah, I never really saw those South Sydney teams, so I can't really draw a direct comparison to what they were like. But yeah, I don't think we're that far off, honestly. I think that we've got some class, especially for next season. We just need to, I'm not sure whether it's a coaching thing, I think it's a roster thing. If we can just find that quality, I really don't think we're that far off, because I think effort, defensive effort, is the hardest thing to come up with. Natural talent will help your attack, but we're doing the tough stuff at the moment, the stuff that's hard to do, which is defend well. But we are doing that, but we just don't have that person. Like you brought South Sydney up, for example. We don't have that guy like Latrell who can just kind of pick up a ball and break 5 tackles and score underneath the post. We just don't really have that at the moment, and that sucks. But it is what it is. But I do think we're just bad at the moment, and I think with Luai coming next year, we can at least be average, if not good. I know that shouldn't be very high, but
Gary, the thing that frustrates me is you've got a Super League competition, you've got New South Wales Cup, you've got Queensland Cup. We've got a spot in our roster. Surely there's one guy somewhere in the world who can get in there and play in the back row and bring some intensity. Like Ewan Aitken, like look at how he played today. He's no world beater and no superstar, but he provided some thrust for them. Like there has to be someone looking for an opportunity somewhere that could add something to this team. It has to be.
For some reason, we just haven't signed that sort of player for a number of years now. That guy that just goes out there and makes opposition scared. We don't have that player, and I think we all hoped that Papali'i was going to come across and provide some of that sort of impact, but he hasn't done it, and I don't know what the answer is. I couldn't name the person to go out there and get at this point in time that would fix that for us. So it is something that needs to be fixed, but I don't know what the answer is to it at this point. It's hard to come up with the answers at the moment because I do agree with Declan. I do think we are progressing. Like, the results don't show it, but I still think we're playing better football than what we were playing at this point last year. I do think that the effort is better than what we saw from the squad over the course of the season last year. That needs to continue for the rest of the year. But at this point, I do think we are progressing forward, and a few key changes coming into this squad next year will hopefully push that along. But you're right, we do need that kind of player that second rower who does put a bit of fear into the opposition, because I think that would make a world of difference with the additions we've got coming next year.
Declan, going back to Enumerator's point about there being some green shoots, and you do a very good job of keeping an eye on the younger players. Like some of the guys that we've put on development contracts seem to be the wrong people. They are not. They don't seem to be coming through as we would like them to be. Do you agree with that? It seems like the guys that are a few of the guys that have been on development contracts that have made their way into the top 30 aren't likely to be contributors to this team moving forward. And it seems the generation behind them are our green shoots. Is that a fair point?
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I think the club, historically, if you look at everyone on development contracts, we probably haven't done a great job of transitioning them into first graders. But yeah, I think the problem right now we're having is like there's too many people on those development contracts. I think if you look at there's like 10 guys in the squad that just probably aren't ready for first grade at the moment, and so there's not a lot of depth at the moment, which is why we have to stick with guys like AJ Kakoa. So yeah, I think that's a fair point at the moment. I think they've played the numbers game. They've brought a lot of these guys up, like the guys like Jordan Miller, Kittler Lilly, Talon De Silva, and Lachlan Galvin as well. I think they brought them all up at the same time, like giving them that top 30 spot maybe a little bit before they were ready, and now we're kind of suffering for it medium term. But hopefully, I think Jordan Miller had his best game in reserve grade last week against the Knights. So I'm hoping that he might be ready soon. Fingers crossed. And he's like one of those like damaging props that we like really need. I know that obviously we said our middles did a pretty good job today, but I think that he's someone who could kind of like break it open a game. So hopefully that goes well. But yeah, I think there's definitely been like a bit of a flaw in the roster construction because we're just not getting value out of a lot of these guys who are on those development contracts, or the guys that were development contracts last year who have come into the top 30 this year. I think that's a real problem and you can clearly see that with the reserve grade team because they're coming last. So, that Penrith just don't do that.
Yeah.
In an effort to keep those young guys, because they were all getting interest from other clubs, our club made the decision to put the top 30 as a component of their junior deals. And there's a number of players who next year move into the top 30 as well. Now, what's crucially important is that those decisions that we've made, not so much this year, but last year and the year before, it's crucially important that those decisions were right. Because if they weren't right, what it's going to do is it's going to put a whole heap of players into our top 30 over the next couple of years who are never going to be ready to be first-grade footballers. So we just have to hope that those decisions on those players were the correct decisions. And I think you have a look. It's something we've been doing for a while because we've got a guy like Brendan Toomuth who's sitting in our top 30 who really isn't contributing to the NRL squad at all. We've got Matamua who despite showing really good signs at times, really hasn't contributed much to the NRL squad. He made his debut, what is it 2 years ago now? He made his debut and he's still not regularly an option in the NRL. He's only an option when injuries or when we're short of players. We have to hope that these decisions that we've made over the past couple of years are probably better than at least the Brendan Toomuth one, because I don't see where at any time he's going to develop into an NRL player. And the fact that we've got juniors pushing into those NRL spots, that's when recruitment gets hard, because you've already given away those spots for the following seasons. Like, I think there's I don't know who they are, but there is a couple, and Declan might have more of an idea, who are going in the top 30 spots for next year. And it's really important that those decisions were correct, because it limits who we can bring in.
On a non-unrelated topic, just a quick chat about Adam Doueihi, because that story did come through, which we presume was leaked by Adam Doueihi's manager, who is Adam Doueihi, because we haven't had any leaks at all from the club, so you'd have to presume that that's the case. $150,000 deal, and he's come out and he said, I want to play halfback and I've lost weight, but as I said on the forum, I just don't think we can burn a spot with a guy that, well, A, we don't need a halfback, and B, we don't need a project or a risky guy that yeah, he might be cheap, but we're just not going to have a spot in the top 30 for someone who's where Adam Doueihi is in his career. No disrespect to the guy, Gary.
Yeah, for me, Adam Doueihi needs to find someone to give him better advice than the advice he's currently getting. His manager's not doing a very good job. And I don't mean to be flippant about it, because it is a guy's career we're talking about. But moving forward, I only see his options as being a 13 or being a centre. I don't really see where else he fits. And if he's taken bulk off in an attempt to play halfback, that rules out the 13 spot for him. He's not going to be a lock if he's dropped, I think it was 7 or 8 kilos he was talking about. And losing that weight with the style of footballer he is, that limits his effectiveness as a centre as well, because he's not a fast centre. He's not a guy who's great at light-footed footwork around the play. He's a guy that uses his bulk and his awkward running style to bust through tackles, and that's where I'd see him playing as a centre. And if he's dropped off some of that bulk, I don't see him being as effective in that role as well. So I do really think he needs to consider the next step in his career in my opinion, is not as a half. And to be losing weight to try and turn yourself into a 7, when I don't think you really made it as a 6, I don't think is a really smart move on his behalf.
Yeah, I think that when I judge footy players, I always try not to hold them to standards that I wouldn't hold myself to. Now, obviously, that's difficult because, I've never really been in that professional football environment. So there's just some things I wouldn't understand. But in saying that, if I wanted to go for a job and someone told me, oh, you shouldn't do that, we see you as this. No, that's my decision. I should be able to apply whatever role I want to, because it's my career, it's my decision to make, not yours. So I think with Adam Doueihi, if he wants to sell himself as a half, I think he's just absolutely entitled to do that. Doesn't mean the Tigers have to sign him as a half. That's their decision. But I see some criticism of him, saying he wants to play in halves. I think that's fine. And another point, could anyone honestly say they couldn't see Adam Doueihi at a club in that Brad Snyder role, playing reserve grade as a half, coming in for injuries, maybe he's a third or fourth stringer, and then he can also play centre as well. So I think he does have some value in those aspects. And I could definitely see him being signing up as that backup half and coming in for injuries. I don't think that's too unrealistic.
Would you be finding more than minimum wage for that role?
Closer to the pen, closer to 150k, yes, than maybe 500 for sure, yeah.
And I don't like to say it, but I think a lot of his desire to play in that halves role, I think is, and a lot of people's desire, and I won't just pin it on Adam Doueihi, a lot of guys want to play in the fullback role. A lot of guys want to play in the 5'8" role because they get the money for those positions. And I'm not going to pin it on and say that's what Adam's doing, because I think that's unfair. I don't know what he's thinking. But I don't think that's best for... And if he wants to go do it, fine, go do it. I've got no problem with him going and trying that. I've got no problem with him saying, I want to be a half. I'm saying that's a bad choice. I'm saying I don't think he's going to make that transition And he's quite free to go and try that. That's not me saying he shouldn't be allowed to go try that, or he should do whatever the club wants him to do. My opinion is what's best for his career. What would be best for his career would be to work really hard at that 13 role in improving his defence, because I think if he could improve his defence, he could be quite good in that 13 role, whereas I don't see him making that transition. And if I was advising him, and if I was his manager or I knew him, that's the advice I'd be giving him, because I think that's best for his long-term career. Now, if he wants to go and play as a half, fine, go and do it. I just don't think he'll be at the West Tigers.
Yeah. Hey, what I think is better for your career is I reckon you should make 30 more tackles a game in a position you've never played before. That will go well. Great, thank you. All right, moving on.
The problem is I don't think he's going to make it as a 6. I don't think he's going to make it as a 7. And with his third knee reconstruction, I have doubts whether he's going to have the pace to play centre. And if he's lost the extra weight on that, as well as that, I really see that limiting his ability to play centre at all. And I think fullback's long gone for him. And while, yes, going and having to make 30 tackles a game is very different to what he's had to do in the past, the problem is I don't see anyone signing him as a half. They may sign him as a reserve grade backup half, but that's not what he's looking for either. I think the best option for him for his long-term career, he's got to look at another position, and I don't see what that position is. I think he's in a really difficult spot, and maybe Super League's the option where he needs to go, and he can probably play in that halves role in the Super League, because I just don't see an NRL squad picking him up for that role. Not as a starter, maybe as a backup, but not as a starter.
Well, to be fair, I don't think he said starter at a club. I think he just said he wanted to play in the halves. But yeah, I think we spent enough time on Adam Bury. You can see Joe just rolling his eyes a little bit. But.
Well, I think the thing that has to be taken into the context of it is we all have in our memory, pick me at 6 or don't pick me at all. There seems to be, if you piece the pieces together, and I might be wrong, but if you piece them together anecdotally, you'd say that here's a guy that thinks that he should be given a go as West Tigers halfback, and that he's leaked that he only got offered a $150,000 contract. And I think the ego of Adam might just be, writing checks that maybe the talent can't quite, or the body can't quite cash. It's a shame, because I've been an Adam Doueihi fan. I see aspects of Adam Doueihi. I'd love to see him make a success, but I don't want him here taking up a spot, trying to turn himself into a halfback. Gary.
And the last thing I'll say on it, if he was available and fit next week, I think I'd be picking him at centre, because we've seen what Naden's provided the last couple of weeks. I think I'd be picking him at centre, and he could possibly turn that into his position, but there's got to be a desire to do that as well, and I don't know if that's there.
My prediction is that someone like a Roosters or a South will pick him up. They'll give him a contract like that. They can burn a spot, see how he goes, and they might get some value out of him, through Origin or something like that. And he may be able to regroup and get his career going. But it's going to be a risk for any club. That's just the situation that he's in with those knees. The other news that's around, apparently $50 million is coming from the federal government for a big upgrade of Leichhardt Oval. Anthony Albanese, he's shed his Hawthorn Hawks scarf that he was photographed in and got lots of flack for. The South Sydney fan is going to open up the purse strings for Leichhardt Oval, $50 million, but no official announcement yet. That would include, Gary, the building of that northern grandstand. Look, $50 million is a lot of money, but what they're talking about, I don't know if it's a $50 million job. To me, it seems like you're going to need more money than that, but it's still a fairly big job if these reports are correct. New corporate facilities, new food facilities, new toilets, but mostly built around that new stand at the northern end. What do you think about the news? Should West Tigers fans be optimistic about a future at Leichhardt? And does it mean playing more than 2 or 3 games there, do you think, even with that investment?
I don't think it will ever mean playing more than 3 or 4 games there. no matter what, I think the article stated that would raise capacity to around 19,000. Moving forward, I hope that's not going to be big enough for us to be playing a lot of games there. I love Leichhardt Oval. I want us to play more games there. The big thing for me is it will allow us to continue to play some games there. Because I think without this upgrade, that there's probably very little chance we're going to be playing any more than one possible afternoon Return to Leichhardt game a year there. This gives the potential for us to play that 3, maybe 4 games there a year. And for me, that would be a positive outcome. But I think the important part is that the upgrade for me isn't just so Leichhardt Oval remains a viable venue for NRL games. It's so it remains a viable venue for all the sports that play there. And I think that's the important part of it.
Yeah, sorry. I was just Googling, like, Brookvale Oval, it says there's a capacity of, like, 20,000. And I've been there a few times, and it's a pretty good atmosphere. Like, it's like that's old suburban ground, but they've managed to splash a little bit of cash on it, so they've got a few grandstands, obviously, because, it's a Liberal seat, so, they didn't have the problems with funding that we've had. But, yeah, I don't know, like, if it gets to 19,000, then that's, like, not saying we have to play all our games for forever there, but, like, that would be a pretty good start, wouldn't it? And then build from there, and then maybe like 5 years down the track we could reassess if we need a bigger stadium. But like, I don't know, I'd be open to, if it got the 50 million and it like raised capacity to 19,000, then I think that would be a good start.
Well, the bigger question is, what did Shane Richardson think when he read that headline? Because he would have gone, "Oh no, couldn't you have waited a couple of months for it?"
Look, if it's not announced soon, like the club's supposed to be having
it's coming.
Their stadium plan released in just over a month or so.
In June, I think it was. Yeah.
Was it June or July? I can't remember. It was one of the two. So not very, very far away. So if it doesn't get announced soon, it may not actually come into consideration anyway.
Well, that's the thing we always hear in the news cycle. It's either the Leichhardt is getting funding or the Balmain Leeds Club is, that's getting funding as well. Like, there's always something, and it never actually ends up happening. So, yeah, hopefully this is the exception to the rule, because I'd be quite keen to keep playing at Leichhardt.
Well, I want us to keep games there. I think it's it'd be really a big positive for the club. As I said, I don't think they'll continue to play 5 games that it was there this year, but we could probably get to a situation where hopefully we're playing 3 to 4 games there a year, and I get to keep my seats at Leichhardt. That'd make me very happy.
But I think we still would be a club divided, which is, and I'm being non-selfish here because, I love the place. Nobody loves Leichhardt more than me. But so long as we're divided, I think we're going to be hamstrung, and the handbrake on the club is going to be on. We need to have one home ground, in my opinion, Declan.
Yeah, Olympic Park's great because you get like 3 seats either side of you to like just chill and have that maximum space. So
you can lay down, Declan, and have a little bit of a sleep if the game gets a bit boring.
Yeah, you can sunbathe as well.
Yeah, that's right. You can have a whole bay to yourself if you're really lucky. Yeah, if Tigers are playing badly enough. Dear. If there was an alternative, we would use that alternative. But we'll see what the club comes up with. Look. The corporate strategy that we put out, Gary, it's all about community. So I think that maybe the club might say, well, if we're community-minded, bearing in mind that a lot of that community-mindedness was focused on the southwest, then there may be some leverage there for the club to play and happily play a few games at Leichhardt. Maybe it's not a case of if or when. I mean, all the discussion has also been that Campbelltown would still get a couple of games as well, regardless of any significant upgrades there.
The thing is, I think Campbelltown needs upgrading as well, because, again, I think its capacity is around that 18,000 mark, and for them to be, and I think Declan's right, I think that 19,000 upgrade at Leichhardt Oval is a positive moving forward. It allows us to play some games there. But if we're ever to go to a situation where we're playing the majority of games or all our games at the 2 traditional bases, they both need significant upgrades in terms of capacity. Campbelltown's just the same. I think it needs some work done as well. I think around the community thing, I think we're going to see the announcement of the West Tigers community program. It's called West Tigers Empower in the next couple of weeks, I think, and I think that's more going to be where that community engagement part comes in. Not so much where we're playing games, but how we're interacting with the community, especially down in the southwest.
Yeah, interesting times. We'll wait and watch. The midweek pod, no doubt, will be something that it'll be a podcast event, as it always is. I really enjoy
Will Eddie
listening.
have calmed down by then?
I like listening to the midweek pod, and I like how Eddie keeps himself in check and acts very professionally, which is fantastic to see.
No, I did get a few messages who were worried about him on last week's pod, saying he sounded a bit flat and a bit down. So hopefully, a win today would have been really important to cheer Eddie up, I think.
Yeah,
I think he missed you, Gary. I think he missed you.
That's what I thought it was. I thought just because I wasn't on the midweek pod, he was just a bit sad because I wasn't there.
we can finish on
around.
we can finish on a pod on a positive. At least we're not Parramatta fans.
That's true.
Well,
that was horrible.
even when they're doing well, I wouldn't want to be a Parramatta fan. So.
Exactly. No matter what, no matter how bad it gets, make it 5 wooden spoons in a row. At least we don't follow Parramatta. Thank you, guys.
Thanks,
Thanks, boys.